Bear with me, you all. Just gonna wait for a few minutes for everyone to get on and all that sort. So just bear with me. All that sorts. Today I'm going to uh, do a very small demonstration on what I do to clean my musket. Everyone has a different method, and they go into detail as to, or they everyone does it a little bit differently. I do mine a little bit differently compared to others, and vice versa. Um, I personally have my own method that works for me. I personally try to be a minimalist. Um, it's not that I don't like using a lot of chemicals, but sometimes I feel that the more chemicals you use, the uh, you know, sometimes you can accidentally, if you're not careful, you can get it into parts that you don't want. Like for example, I'm using cotton swabs, or these cotton, well not swabs, but these cotton um, or wool. Well, not cotton though, but they're like wool pads. I have they're like cotton knit cleaning patches. These right here that I get at the store. Now I'm sure a lot of people will probably grill me for this, grill me with how I do my cleaning process, and that's fine. Um, I now initially when I first clean, or like when I first clean the barrel, I of course prefer to use hot water and dump it down the barrel, as well as um, kind of tilt the barrel back and forth, and kind of use it as a way to kind of get the water, or like the black powder out of the barrel. Again, oh, and hello. I kind of use it as a way to kind of do the initial cleaning, because black powder is soluble, or however you want to pronounce it, and all that sorts. So I use it as a way to do the initial cleaning, because it takes a little bit less, or not as long when you do it that way. Um, it kind of makes it a little bit less burden, a little bit less of a burden when you do it that way. So I prefer to get a little bit of water and dump it down, or like a hot water, and dump it down the barrel a few times, and kind of clean water, hot clean water, because it dries faster, and I just feel that doing that as the initial part of the cleaning certainly makes it a lot easier. And by no means is it a single thing to do for your cleaning, because the cleaning process isn't more involved than that. Um, it's simply just one of the steps in simply just cleaning and maintaining your musket or your rifle. Again, everyone will do it differently. And by all means, for those that are interested, please ask questions. I would love for you to be engaged. I would love to be able to answer your questions. Um, so please definitely do so. Hello, uh, Erwin von Braun. Nice to see you. Some of you all checking in. It's always nice to see people checking in. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask. Um, I'm just going to stay on live for as long as you all are willing to ask questions, as well as or until my battery dies, my charger is inside. I'm simply just doing a very basic cleaning video. And also, other than the water that I use, with the little bit of, I shouldn't say that I use a lot of water on the cotton pads. I use a tiny tad. I don't use very much, just because when I wet the patches here, I don't use much water, just because it's one of those things. But what I also use is Ballistol, which is a chemical. One of the chemicals that I do choose to use. And again, the same concept applies for that. Is I simply put a tiny bit. I don't put a lot. Um, hey, from Maryland. What up from Maryland? Nice to see you all. And if you all have questions or comments or maybe even advice or things that you do to clean your musket, please chime in. I would love to hear what you all do. Again, this is simply what I do. What I do may be a little bit different than what you do. So it's kind of one of those things. And then I just get a little bit of Ballistol and just put a tiny bit on the barrel, like inside the barrel. And then, of course, when it comes to the locking system, I put a tiny bit on some of the uh, parts that are appropriate. Um, yep, personally, WD-40, I can't speak on that. Uh, I mean, I'm sure people use WD-40. I personally would not, but that's just me. Um, it's kind of one of those things where it's not necessarily that I'm a minimalist, but I find that I like to keep things simple and follow the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. That's just my advice. Because the more simple you keep it, the less there is to technically go wrong. Um, you know, and again, actually, as far as hunting with it, funny that you asked that. I actually attempted to go hunting with it this past weekend. Unfortunately, I didn't see anything, but I did live fire it this past weekend. I have a brown bess that I'm using currently. That I'm currently using a brown bess second model, and that's what I'm currently using. Um, but as far as the other things, so pretty much here's what I do. From start to finish, as far as the cleaning process as a whole, is right after the event is over, like the battle itself. I will simply go back to camp or come home, and I will then proceed to, as soon as possible, get some hot water. And then once I get hot water, I will then uh, fill the barrel up with water, as well as covering the touch hole. Um, again, I have the locking system off, um, so it'd be a little hard for me to be able to show it as a hole, but the touch hole is right there on the musket. Um, so if you cover that, then of course I go back and forth a few times with new, fresh, clean water every time I pour water down the barrel. Um, so the question is, can you fire it if it's raining, or will the moisture affect the powder? For my brown bess, Model 2, yes, rain or a lot of humidity will definitely affect the firing, and it's not suggested, because they did not fire their muskets in the rain, um, or snow or whatever, and it's because it negatively affects the powder, because the powder draws in a lot of moisture. Um, but anyway, so kind of back to what I was getting at was, as soon as I uh, dump water, hot, fresh water down the barrel multiple times, I then, of course, it has to, do it as many times as you need to. Um, Do it as many times as you need to until the water comes out clear. Um, so it might take one time, two times, five times, even sometimes I've even sat there and done it. And then, of course, as a final touch, I do try to rinse the pan off a little bit with the hot water just for a final touch. And then from there, at this point, depending on how dirty it is, I will usually take the locking system off of the musket or rifle itself, and then at the very least wipe it down with these cotton pads that I have that I put a tiny tiny tad of water on, just enough to get slightly damp. That's the key. Because you don't want to, because you don't want to have there be too much water, just for corrosion, rust, and all that stuff, and just moisture in general. So how accurate is this Brown Bess second model versus a modern rifle or musket? Well, that to be honest with you, it really. I mean, this is a musket versus a rifle. Muskets were not very accurate. Of course, everyone will say something different. From my research and from my understanding, is that they were only really accurate up to maybe about, I'd like to say, maybe 60 to 80 yards and all that stuff. So that's pretty much how accurate they were during that time period and all that stuff. Um, so it kind of just varies a little bit and all that sorts. Um, Now, rifles were a little bit more accurate at that time and all that stuff. They were sorry, but they were a little bit more accurate during the time period. Historic rifles were more accurate than muskets. Now, of course, historic rifles and muskets versus modern stuff, that's a different story. Now, rifles and muskets, I would have, well, rifles at the very least are definitely, of course, technology, of course, has made things a little bit more accurate, of course. But to kind of add to that, as far as modern muskets, I can't speak on that because I'm not uh, in tune with modern muskets and stuff, or muzzle loaders or whatever. I'm not really um, in tune with that. But anyways, so kind of back to the topic at hand. As far as the next step that I take in the cleaning process is, um, once I take the locking system off and wipe it down with these cotton pads, I then put it back onto the barrel and stuff, and go from there. And I then proceed to clean the inside of the barrel and whatever other parts of the musket or rifle that I'm firing, that are needed. Um, and then, of course, I'll then get a little bit of Ballistol and mix it a little bit with a little bit of water on a cleaning pad here, like you see here, and then kind of wipe the inside of the barrel and what relevant parts that need it. Now, this is where you got to be really careful when you use any kind of chemical, which is kind of why I try to, in a sense, stray away from it because depending on what it is, you do not want to put any kind of lubricant or any kind of grease or any of that. Well, I say this like a grain of salt. You just don't want to have any greasy stuff going into the pan or onto the touch hole area because it could affect how the musket or rifle fires in a negative way. So you want to be really careful when you do that. Um, so it's kind of one of those things. We just got to be really careful. I simply just get a little bit of just, as I mentioned, a tiny bit of water, and kind of just, use that here to clean the pan and stuff, and in this area, I just get a little bit of water, on like a tiny tad of water on the cotton pads that I showed you earlier, and just wipe this area off. And you definitely want to avoid putting any kind of grease, on the flint, because again, that'll affect it. Um, Now, how much does now? Another question is let's try not to stray too far away from the topic at hand, but I'm more than happy to answer your questions. As far as how much does one of these musket prices run, price wise? That usually just varies. I'll be honest. The prices can vary from. I've seen some as low as $200, and I've seen some as high as maybe $3,000, even $5,000, especially if it's a custom, like a really custom, like a like an extremely customized musket. Um, like I've seen some coming out of Old Salem, that are priced, or that I've heard of. I've heard of some prices being upwards of $8,000 to $10,000. I don't know how true that is, but I've heard of prices being upwards of that. Um, but you could probably reasonably get one for, I'd like to say, maybe you could, maybe, I mean, one that could, do what you're wanting to, as far as for reenacting purposes, for like from like a reenactor perspective, to where you're only using it for reenactments. You could probably get one that would be, um, good enough to do maybe, let's say maybe $600 to $1,000, maybe, give or take. You're probably looking at the $600 to $800 price range. Maybe. I'll be honest. I really couldn't give you an honest answer on that. The exact price, because the price just varies. Because there's a lot of factors that go into that answer. And maybe some other people that are more knowledgeable on the topic itself could chime in and give you a better answer. Um, but one thing I will say is that research is absolutely key, um, in that process. So definitely keep that in mind before you buy, because there's a lot of factors, again, as I mentioned, as to, the exact price. I personally couldn't give you a good price, like an accurate price amount, because I mean, again, I've been off the market. But anywho, what are some methods that you all use as far as cleaning your muskets and stuff? Again, I know that I personally use these cleaning pads, these cloth cleaning, or these cotton, uh, these cotton pads, as well as a tiny tad of water, and a little bit of Ballistol. Again, I shouldn't say that I'm a minimalist, but in a sense, I kind of am. And it's simply just because of the fact that I just don't like to sit there and use a crap load of chemicals and stuff, because it kind of leaves more to go wrong, possibly, and more things that could potentially affect how the musket operates, um, and all that sorts. So it just depends on how comfortable you are with it. Um, but that's just me. Again, I've always been a minimalist. I know that a lot of people, some people will probably knock me for my process, and to be honest with you, that's fine. I'm not gonna sit here and disagree with you. um, but one thing that I will say is that so far nothing has gone wrong, and nothing has gone. Nothing has happened in a negative way. So for those that maybe, um, it's one of those things. If you have a better process, great, use it. I highly suggest it. I mean, use what method you think is best for you. Um, so, but with that being said, um, if you all have any questions, please, by all means, chime in. Um, I definitely want your uh, input as to what you all do as far as cleaning and maintaining your muskets, rifles, or whatever firelocks you have. Um, and of course, I'm a student of life, as I like to put it. Um, I I do not claim to know everything. Um, so it's kind of one of those things to where um, maybe you have some input in how I can probably do better, and maybe vice versa. I could probably give you all advice. Um, Hopefully, I can keep this there long enough. But, anyways, if you all have questions, I am more than happy to answer them as far as maybe input or feedback. Um, or if you want me to repeat something or go over a particular aspect or maybe get my thoughts on it, just let me know. I'd love to see what your input is, and go from there. Um, so, anywho, I'm still going to stick around for a little while longer. There's definitely some people checking in here, and all that sorts. So I'd love to be able to help you out, and answer your questions that you may or may not have. Um, Maybe you have some input. And again, I have a Brown Bess second model, the Shortland 1. Maybe if I say a false statement, maybe people will get on board and argue with me. Um, okay, Brown Besses are the world's best muskets. They are the only ones that exist. Let's see who gets on board with that. Who wants to argue with me? Um, but anywho, again, as far as some of that's pretty much the things that I do. Again, I know that everyone has a different method as far as what they do versus what I do. And I know that everyone's going to have a say as to what they do versus what I do. So who's familiar with a locking system for your muskets and stuff? Who's familiar with this? Who wants to take a guess at what this is that I've been cleaning for the past five minutes? Five or so minutes. Who knows what this is? Anyone want to take a guess? Who wants to name off the parts? Any takers? Um, oh, hello, Game Freak 8503. Yep. So basically, hopefully I can find the part here that I have all set up here. Yes, you would be absolutely correct. That would be the. Technically, it's part of one of the parts. The flint would go right here, but this whole piece as a whole would be considered the locking system for your musket. Now, that's the. Yes, you would be correct. The firing thing for old rifles and muskets. You would be correct when you say that. That answer works. I would not dispute that. You would get a positive answer from me. At least you all would. I would not disagree with that. Now, this is the time in which I am getting the Ballistol prepared. Again, I'm doing this. I do things a little bit more unconventionally, just because I like to do things differently, be special. Everyone has their own ways of cleaning and maintaining their muskets and rifles, and their historic rifles and muskets and stuff. Everyone has their own method. I personally have my own, and of course, some people will dispute what I do or say, and that's fine. I'm not gonna sit here and knock you for it. Because again, everyone has their own thing. Now, this is the Ballistol that I have right here. You can buy some. As far as a vendor, I couldn't tell you who sells it. I got some from a friend that was kind enough to let me get some, or let me have some. So that's pretty much how I got a hold of it. Now, again, that's kind of personal thing. I will be right back. I'm just getting I'll go get some rags for some gloves and stuff. So bear with me. As I go get some more. But yes, so again, everyone does it a little bit differently. I have my own method, and that's fine. I totally respect your own way. So what are some of the ways that you all clean your historic muskets and rifles? Do you all do anything different or similar to what I do, or am I the only oddball here? Yep, absolutely. I must be the only oddball here. Now, as far as how much to use, that just depends on you. And of course, there are different applications and how you could use it. Some people get a um, some people will get a bottle of I like get an empty bottle, and they'll mix some Ballistol in with some water and use that as a cleaning source, and that's fine, and all that stuff. Um, or they can just use the straight bottle like this. That's personally what I do. Is I just get a bottle like this and I just dip it into a plastic cup, or make a tin foil little reservoir like this, and just put a tiny bit, the least amount you can, because you likely won't. I mean, you likely won't be using very much anyways. Or at least I don't. Hello, Levington and friends. Long time no see. Now, as far as the Game Freak 8503, I never touched any rifle. Our country doesn't now allow them. I am sorry to hear that. I'm not sure where you live, but I would love for you to come to America, um, and try out a musket or a rifle, or potentially move here if you so choose. Um, if it's something that you want to do, I would love for you to come here. Um, but anyways, hello, Levington and friends. Nice to see you. Long time no see and here. Um, uh, it's always nice to see you around occasion. It's always nice to see you around a little bit. Um, but now, again, as far as I'm kind of going back to the parts that you can use to lubricate, and that you can use this Ballistol on. Again, I personally don't use a lot of chemical, regardless of what it is. I don't use a lot. I just try to use the least amount as possible, just because I just don't like to have chemicals on my muskets and stuff. Um, but as far as the lubricants, you also want to, like as I mentioned earlier, you want to avoid getting it into the pan, or onto the striking piece right here where the flint strikes. And you want to avoid getting it on the flint itself, um, and all that sorts, just for the sake of, um, you don't want to, you know, it's, because it affects how it operates as well, unfortunately. Um, so you want to be really careful when you do that. And you can kind of see how I'm kind of just lightly dabbing these areas and stuff. Um, it's kind of to, again, I'm a minimalist, so I'm kind of going in here, if you can kind of see it, the areas that are not associated with the pan or the striker or the or the flint areas and stuff, just for personal opinion. Um, and for those that are checking in now, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do. We would love to have you. Um, we always try to welcome as many people as we can. Do I use just Ballistol for lube? Well, you can use Ballistol for also cleaning it as well. It's one of those things to where. Thank you very much, Game Freak 8503. But yes, Ballistol is something that you can use for cleaning purposes as well. Um, there's people that are out there, and I've done it myself. I'll be honest, I've done it myself, to where they've gotten a jug, and they've come up with like a mixture. As far as that exact number, I mean, it just depends. I'd like to say, if you were to do like a if you were to do like a 3/4 water, or like or like maybe like a 50/50 even. You could get away with that. As far as the mixture, well, maybe not even that much. You probably don't even want to use that much. I couldn't even give you an accurate number, but I've heard different numbers though over the years as to how much others use. But it's also known to supposedly prevent rust, um, um, and stuff. So it's just personal preference as to how much you use. Um, Again, I try to use the minimum amount just because um, I'm just one of those people. Um, I mean, you do you. I'm not going to argue with people who want to use even more or like even less than I do or more, because again, it's all just personal opinion. Some people want to use more, some people want to use less. I just so happen to be one of those people that wants to use less. Um, but anywho, it is what it is. Um, and Again, I'm going to kind of go down the barrel with this as well. Since the barrel has been cleaned, um, everything's been cleaned as well on the whole musket and stuff. Um, so it's not like I'm going to really be cross contaminating anything. And one of the steps that I do now, I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for this. Maybe so, and that's quite okay. Um, People will what I sometimes do, depending on how uh, dirty the locking system is. Some people are like, what I do is depending on how dirty it is, I will actually take it off, and I will take the flint and steel, or the flint and all that stuff though, and the locking, like the flint and all that stuff though, off, and then of course I will put the locking system into a what is it? One of those small pot, maybe about this tall or whatever. However, like the smallest one you have, one that you don't like, one that's crappy. Um, and I'll put some water in there, and I'll put a tiny bit of Dawn dish soap in it, and that'll kind of help get some of the gunk out as well. Uh, and again, um, it's kind of one of those things to where people will uh, uh, disagree with me, and that's quite okay, to be honest with you. Because it's not that I don't care, but I just find that um, it's kind of one of those things to where everyone does it a little bit differently, and I'm not going to knock you for it. Um, so again, as I said, um, I personally take my locking system off when it's in desperate need of cleaning, and I will take the flint off, and I'll actually put it into a boiling pot of hot water, and with a little bit of uh, dish soap, the and all that sorts, and get like a toothbrush, or maybe even um, or whatever, um, and kind of wipe down as well. Kind of just wipe the whole thing down on, uh, to kind of like scrub it down and stuff to kind of get some of the extra gunk and stuff. Uh, but that's just me. Um, Nick Jair. Love your channel. Can you please shout me out? Uh, I guess so. Yeah, I guess I inadvertently give you a shout out. Well, yeah, I guess I gave you one. Now Levington and friends. Will this stream be open later? Um, I'm not sure how long I'll be on here. I'll be honest. I could probably be off in 5 minutes. I'm pretty much just gonna stay on as long as people are engaging. I might be here for 5 minutes, or I may very well be here for 30 minutes, or maybe even an hour later, depending on how or when my phone battery dies. That's the good thing about my live streams is that it depends on you all, and it also depends on my phone battery. um, so it's kind of one of those things. So that's really the only thing that really affects it. I mean, I'm not going to be on here all for the rest of the day or all night, but I will certainly be here for maybe another anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour or two. Um, um, oh yeah, I will absolutely keep it on the channel. Levington and friends. I will certainly keep it on here as well. And I will also be having it on my the Facebook group as well. So if you're on the Facebook group, um, you can certainly go. It's the Our Living History Facebook group. It's the private group. If you're not part of it, by all means join it, and you can also message me, and I'll just get you into the group. Everyone is welcome to join the private group. You're more than welcome to do so. I actually encourage it because the more people that are on there, um, the more, uh, just the more people that get involved. Because I like to have a lot of people and kind of use it as a resource for everyone. That's kind of what I try to do is use this as a source for everyone, if that makes sense. Um, so, a source to be used by everyone that is wanting to be a part of it and join in. Yes, I am cleaning a Brown Bess second model. Not sure how familiar you are with it, but it was a musket that was widely used in the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War, um, and all that sorts, and maybe a little, of course, a little bit afterwards as well. So that's what's so interesting about it. Um, Now, oh yeah, well, the Brown Bess first model, it's kind of one of those things. I know there's definitely some differences as far as the process. Well, like as far as um, there's definitely differences as far as um, things that like as far as differences, like things just the size difference and all that stuff. Um, so things like that are a little bit different, um, which is kind of nice. So it's kind of one of those things. Um, but yeah, I mean, by all means, if you all have any questions, even when it's outside of this video, I would love to do what I can to answer your questions, and help you out, because I know that uh, it's not always easy to find resources or uh, information sometimes. Um, so please, by all means, I'd love to be able to help you out and help you find information. If I don't know it, I'm certainly willing to help you find it. Um, I was wondering where this flint, my flint had gone and stuff. Um, yes. Do I use Ballistol when cleaning, when reenacting? Yes, I absolutely do. I think that it's, I personally do. Um, I think it's kind of one of those things to where I use it for cleaning, and as well as kind of lubricating in a sense. It's kind of one of those things that you can use for kind of both. Well, kind of use it for both in a sense. I've had no problem with it. It kind of cuts down a little bit on the rust, which is why I like it. Um, so it's kind of one of those things and stuff to where it all is just personal preference. And my personal preference is to use the least amount of cleaning stuff as possible, just for the sake of simplicity, um, and all that sorts, as well as trying to, you know, follow the keep it simple process, for lack of better words. Because the more things you use, the more likely something is to go wrong, which is kind of why I have that thinking process. Um, yep, absolutely. Actually, alcohol is another good thing to use. Um, it's something that you don't have to really worry about as far as like drying, because it's like, well, gosh darn. I mean, you know how how it's as far as like keeping it simple. Um, and I agree with you. Using water, alcohol, and ballistol. That's in essence, that's really the only things that you really need. Um, and just use, like as I said, you can dump the water. Like as I mentioned earlier in the video, you can use, like for example, like right after hunting, like right after, as soon as possible. Even if it's not like right after, but as soon as possible, it's always suggested to clean it right as soon as possible. But what you can do is as soon as you um, get off the field, or get to a place where you can do it, you pour some hot water down the barrel while covering the touch hole, or covering the touch hole with, like, I always use a rag of some sort, or maybe um, oh well, yeah, you can technically just oil it and leave it. It's all personal preference. Everyone does a little bit differently. I personally just, um, sometimes I like to be extra, but you also just want to make sure that you just clean it as well. Um, but what you can do is as soon as you get off the field or get into a place that you can do it, you simply just get some hot water while covering the touch hole with a rag, and you just keep pouring hot water down the barrel, to get the black powder out of the barrel and stuff, because black powder is insoluble, or like soluble and stuff. Um, yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally just love to clean my musket and stuff as much as possible, just for the sake of keeping it clean and maintaining it. Because you really want these things to last because you're putting money into it. It's something that you want to be able to enjoy 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. Um, you know, but just get the hot water poured up and down the barrel, new clean water over and over again until the water comes out of the barrel clean or clear. And then at that point, um, as I said before, it certainly makes things a lot easier. Um, as far as sharpening the flints, I actually have a video or two on the topic as far as, well, maybe three, as far as maybe three. Um, um, yeah, as far as like the flints and stuff, you can nap the flint and that'll help a little bit. But as far as sharpening it, I mean, it just depends on what condition it is because sometimes it's not even worth sharpening. You're probably just better off just buying a new flint. Um, but I've heard people getting like a grinder of some sort and kind of shaping it in such a way that benefits the situation. I've heard of people doing that. Now, do I do it? I personally don't. I've always just gone to events um, and just bought a new flint and stuff. I know people who do it, who sharpen their own. And I will sometimes just give them the old flints and say, "Here, have at it," and they'll keep the flints for themselves, and then they'll just sharpen it too. I just don't have the setup to do it either, which is the other part of the problem. So it's kind of one of those things, It really is just personal preference as to what some people will be. As far as like, I mean, it all just depends on the what length you're willing to go to, to what lengths and stuff. I personally find that sometimes it's just not even worth it. Um, uh, yeah, I use a hammer and nail. I buy flints, but they're just a little expensive. I mean, it all just depends. I mean, there's different strokes for different folks. Um, I mean, what may work for me may not work for you. But what works for you may not work for me. It all just depends on the person, and what they're willing to do, and all that sorts. Um, so it's kind of, one of those things. Um, so you got to do what works for you and what you feel comfortable with. So, um, it's one of those things. So, um, that's just what I do. Um, as I like to say it, I'm a certain kind of special, and there is nothing wrong with that. Um, Again, some people will disagree with my method as far as how I clean it and I maintain a musket and stuff. Um, so it's kind of one of those things. And I won't disagree with you. Some of this stuff can be expensive. But as far as flints go, you could very well get a flint in sorts from, if you have any local reenactments, like if you have any like local reenactments or know of any reenactors in your area that know where to get them, you could certainly get in touch with them, and they'd be able to help you as far as acquiring flints. I mean, I mean, of course, if you go to a store, I don't know, that sells them. I'm not sure how much they would sell them for. It just depends. I've never really come across anything excessively expensive. I'd like to say I've been able to find flints for like $2 maybe. Do I own a flintlock or do I just borrow one? This one right here I'm using right here. And all that sorts. So it's been great for me. It's done me pretty well up to this point. I've had no problems with it. Yeah, I'm not sure if I've heard of the YouTuber called Hitchcock. He may be a good YouTuber, I'm not sure. I'm kind of a loner, I'll admit. I know a lot of reenactors and stuff, and I know a lot of YouTubers as well. I just, tend to kind of, as I like to call it, I personally like to kind of not necessarily keep to myself, but I like to kind of, I kind of like to kind of, in a sense, kind of stay in my own lane. Like, I'll absolutely talk to other YouTubers. I have a few friends. I'm friends with Ron Melton, who's in charge of the, he does Captain Ron's 18th century this, 18th century. I know a few others and stuff. Yeah, Ron Melton, he does a lot of good stuff. He does stuff ranging from Tennessee to Georgia, even in some cases Virginia. Recently, he was actually I'd like to say, he was at Feast of the something, which is an event further north than I am. Don't mind me as I'm putting the musket back together, you all. You want to put these in halfway, you kind of want to edge these in, each in their own way, a little bit at a time on each side. This is the brown bess right here. I'm actually screwing the locking system back in. It can be quite interesting sometimes, as one can imagine. You want to screw these in a little bit at a time on each side. Yep, you're correct. I am using a phone on this. It's as I've mentioned, as you can probably tell, I'm kind of not necessarily minimalistic, but I do tend to be more on the side of just kind of using the least amount. Happy Tuesday. Bear with me. That'll occasionally happen. Some of y'all are probably laughing over there like, oh, he just dropped his locking system on his foot. Yes, I did. And I will gladly admit it. Yeah, that's what I said. Nope, it landed on my foot, thankfully. That's the good thing, is that it landed on my foot. going to be feeling that tomorrow. Thankfully, not really. Not wanting to feel scratched foot. Gonna have to deal with that later. But anyways, yep, just bear with me as I'm kind of screwing this in. Goes into the whole process of trying to get this in as I'm where did I put the screwdriver? Yeah, that is true. Some meat will do me good later. Some nice meat or something along that line. There's also some historic beer types of or ale and stuff that you could probably drink too, for those that are into that kind of thing. Again, you want to tighten each side of the locking system in a little bit at a time. And you also don't want to make it too tight. You kind of just want to easily tighten it to where it's, just easily tighten it. You don't want to force it. You don't want to force it. That's the last thing you want to do. Just because, again, it goes back to the whole process in which, I guess it's the whole thing to where I say more money, more problems, if that makes sense. So you kind of want to be able to manage that. You definitely want to have it tight, but not so tight to where you're kind of beating yourself up over it and it's like, oh, it's stuck in there, I can't get it out. So it's kind of one of those things where you kind of gotta figure yourself. As far as the flash guard, well, on this on this particular one, there's a screw right here that you can unfasten right there, that you can kind of screw out, and to my knowledge, that's all that you have to do. Let's see if I can find that flint. But it's kind of one of those things to where I personally would leave it in there, especially if you do a lot of reenacting and stuff. For reenacting purposes, I would absolutely leave it in there. Just for safety. Because especially when you get into a firing line, it can be pretty troublesome. As far as, well, not troublesome though, but for safety reasons, it's always nice, to have that stuff, on there, because you want to be able to protect the person to the right of you or to the left of you, depending on the side that your flash guard is on. For reenacting purposes, where do I get all my clothing and accoutrements? Assuming that's what you're asking. As far as my reenacting gear, it just depends on what it is. As far as clothing, there's tailors, um, or seamstresses, or people of that sort that will, uh, uh, that'll help you make your clothing and stuff, or that'll make it for you once they get your particular measurements. So if you live near someone that can measure or like get your measurements, that can measure you, then you could very well get your kit together. But as far as specifically there's one lady that I go to here in North Carolina, or that I've previously gone to, who does some work for people, is Janet Pyatt. She owns the Backcountry Peddler. She's done some sewing and stuff, in some clothing making. She's one person that you could use. There's others out there, but it really just depends on who, or like where you live and all that sorts, and that'll depend on where you go. So it's kind of a variable on that. So it's not a straight answer as to what and where. It just depends on those factors. I need one more tool. I'll be right back. Well, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just kind of moving over here. But anywho, there's all kinds of things that you could do as far as what to use and like where to go for your stuff. Okay, found it. Found the tool. Like there's people that you can go to. Like if you join my, I don't know if you're on my Facebook group, but if you go onto the Our Living History Facebook group, there's lots of people on there that could point you in the right direction as far as where to go, and stuff. Oh gosh, I got the wrong tool again. So you could definitely find some people on there, and that'll be a huge help to you. But it really just depends on those things, really. So it just depends on where you can really find some stuff. Well, I'll find the piece later, or the screwdriver later. But anywho, I mean, you can pretty much, I mean, it just depends on where you live. And that'll be a huge factor as to where you can get your stuff, and go from there. So, but that's just my take on things. So It really just depends on where you live. You can also get some of the stuff from Samson or Townsend, which is another good source. Townsend or Samson, historical, both of which will have some good stuff available for you to purchase. Veteran Arms, Crazy Crow is good. Crazy Crow has some decent stuff. Townsend is Townsend is okay stuff. Now one place that I've had a lot of success with as far as clothing goes is Southern Mill, South Mill, South Union Mill, something along that line. Southern Mill, South Union Mill. They're good. So you could very well find some good stuff there at either of those places, and you'd be good. I cannot speak for Veteran Arms. Not because I don't like them, but just because I'm just not familiar with them. Yeah, South Union Mill. Yeah, South Union Mill. I've bought a few things from them as far as like clothing goes. Their stuff is all handmade. Yes, their stuff is all handmade, which is great. Now, from Veteran Arms, again, I can't speak for them, but if you were able to get one from them, great. Now, it's not that I'm a stitch, and it's not that I'm a stitch counter. I'll be the first one to tell you. It's not that I'm a stitch counter, but I tend to like to be as accurate as possible. You know, well, that's good that it's well made. You know, I mean, that's first and foremost. Well, that's one good thing to have is a well made piece of clothing or a cartridge box and stuff. But anywho, it's not that I'm a stitch counter because it's not, because it's not that. But if you're gonna dump a lot of money into something, I tend to be wanting to be as accurate as possible. But that's just personal preference, that sorts. So, but anywho, that's kind of who I use. If you want, you can message me on Facebook if you have one, or we can connect somehow. Just make a comment on my YouTube if you don't have Facebook. Just comment on just comment on one of my videos, and we'll connect and stuff. Yeah, Veteran Arms. I mean, it all just depends on how well made. I mean, again, it's not that I'm a stitch counter, but I tend to try to be as accurate as possible. Just for the sake, because if I'm going to dump money into something, I just want to be able to be, as accurate as possible, because I want to be able to have my money be put towards good stuff. Yes, money is a factor, but it's also one of those things to where if I know that I'm going to be coming up on a particular, if I'm going to be coming up on a time that I'm going to be needing to get a particular piece of equipment, especially with something like muskets or whatever, you want to do it right. You want to do it right and make sure that you get the right stuff. Because it's something that that it's, just even if it takes you like $5, $5 a month, you put $5 a month aside. That's pretty much what I did when I first joined the hobby. Is I put a little bit of money here, like $5 a month here, or even like $10 there. It took me about a year and a half to get all my equipment, as far as clothing and stuff, just the clothing together. To collect it all, because it was like, well, it's so expensive. But I also wanted to do it right, because I knew that this was going to be an investment. Because it's a hobby, I want to be able to enjoy it, years down the road. So that's kind of one of the things that came into play. Now, veteran arms may be good. I'm just not familiar with them. Um, so I'm gonna have to look into them and stuff. Um, as far as clothing goes, I'd like. Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'll tell you up front. I don't want anyone to get into this hobby if it's not something that that they're going to enjoy. Because you're not going to make any money off the hobby. You want to get into it because you love learning and love getting involved. But as far as the cost of clothing, depending on like the quality goes, that's another factor. So you got to think about quality, and all that stuff too. But as far as the linen shirt, just the linen shirt, you could probably go from $80 to $100, maybe even 150 to 180 if it's hand sewn and it uses the proper linen. Um, I spent about 150 to 180 just on the shoes and buckles. Um, hopefully my hopefully my hopefully no one from my family is listening in on this video. Uh, um, they know it's expensive though, but they're probably like, "Oh gosh, how much money are you spending on your hobby now?" But anyways, I spent about 150 to 180 just on the shoes and buckles themselves. Um, and then I probably spent on the trousers maybe 120, 150 on the trousers, and then maybe the waistcoat. I probably spent about 150 as well. And then for the sleeved waistcoat, maybe about 175. It really just, you know, just depends on the quality that you want, and all that sorts. Um, so it's kind of one of those things, because you gotta get into the hobby fully expecting to be able to spend the money and do it right. Um, I know that the price scares a lot of people, and some people will sit there and say, "Oh, well, I can cut corners this way and that way." No one's going to be able to tell. Yes, they absolutely will. um, Again, it's not that I'm a stitch counter. I just want to do it right. So even if you put like $10 to $20 a month, um, if that's all that you can afford, that's fine. Um, so as far as my favorite part of reenacting, I'll be honest. There's multiple parts that are well, I don't have like a favorite per se, but there's things that I like about it. Um, it's the camaraderie. It's the people that come together, that enjoy the same hobby, that enjoy the same thing. The love of the love of history and the love of learning about history. Um, I love to learn new things about history. So that's kind of how I got involved, is because I love history. Um, so it's kind of one of those things, in which I just enjoy it. So that's kind of how I got involved in reenacting. I just love the people. There's good people, there's bad people, but thankfully the people that I'm currently involved with now, like again, Ron Melton, Alex Secreta, and a bunch of other people, and Blaine Massey and stuff, and Paul Lopez and stuff. They're all great people. As far as what era do I do and love the most, um, I personally, oh gosh, I could sit here for hours explaining my reasoning, but I guess in short, I just love American history in general. Just American history. Things, American history ranging from the 1500s all up to the 1900s. Um, Now, just because I reenact the Revolutionary War does not mean that I love just that. I love all of American history. I love learning about it. Um, so I guess it's kind of not an easy answer. I'm kind of dancing around the exact answer, but I guess my favorite. I don't know. I mean, I'm just gonna say just because. I mean, the only reason why I'm saying the American Revolution is just because I have a full kit for it. Now I do a little bit of World War II, and I do a little bit of Vietnam, and I do a little bit of 1812, and a little bit of the Seminole Wars in Florida. Um, but the most complete kit that I have is Rev War. Now I do have now, as I mentioned, I do have a little bit of a kit for different time periods. So you kind of got to consider that. But I guess my favorite is only because I have a full kit for it is Rev War. Although I do love all time periods and stuff. If that answers your question. Now, as far as the Napoleonic Wars and stuff in 1812 era, those are great time periods to be involved. There's a lot to offer. I know of some people that do Napoleonic and as well as 1812. Um, you know, Again, my friend Ron Melton does a little bit of 1812. And I think that another one of my friends does as well. I'll have to ask him again later. But in essence, he does that. Now, one of my friends who does Napoleonic, he lives in Europe, so he's always like going around there, and it's like blah 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 blah. He wears his bicorn hat, and he and sometimes he'll come to my events and he'll walk around, and kind of troll me, because he knows I sit there and stare at him like I give him the death stare. But in reality, I'm really laughing to myself because it's like a dream come true. You just go to an event and you just be a troll. Um, but anywho, it's kind of one of those things. But um, but it's one of those things. You just got to really enjoy what you do. But anyways, I just put back together the musket, the Brown Bess Model 2. Now you'll probably notice that I've been kind of keeping the musket upside down like this for a while. I usually like to keep it like that at least for a day or so, just so if there's any moisture, like any like liquid that's still in there from when I cleaned it out, it'll drip out to the bottom, to the bottom of the opening of the barrel. Um, and then of course I'll just wipe it out, with a very very mildly damp um, cotton, pad and stuff. That's what I'll do. Um, so it's just personal preference. Um, but anywho, now for those that are still checking in, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But anywho, for those that have stuck with me so far, thanks for joining me. I guess I'm going to kind of try to wrap it up soon enough, just to kind of, because I do kind of got to get going with myself and kind of get some things done. I just have some stuff to handle, and I'm going to be busy tomorrow. Guts and Black Powder Blood and Iron, and Last Dawn, all video games. Um, okay, well I'll check out those video games. Are those like PS4 games? I'll admit I don't play many video games. I don't have a console, but if they're like internet games, like games that I can go on the computer with, to where I can just go on the internet and just check it out, I certainly will. I'm not too technologically savvy, but I'll certainly check those games out. Um, um, Roblox PC. Um, is there like a app like an Apple option for those games? If there's an Apple option, I'll certainly check them out. Um, Again, I'm behind on the times. I'll be the first one to tell you that. As far as video games and stuff, I was. Uh, I know that you said that they're PC games, but I wasn't sure if there's a way to play them on a Mac, or if there's like an option for Mac computers or Apple. I have an old, uh, well, semi-old Apple computer, um, and stuff, so that might be an issue. Um, but I'll check it out. I'll do some research online, and if I can find a option in which I could play those games, I'll certainly check them out. Um, okay, great. I'll check it out. Um, this old helmet. I've wanted a brown bess or a trade gun ever since saw the last of the Mohegans when I was young. That's cool. We'll see you later, Lexington and friends. Thanks for checking in. And if you have Facebook, check out the Our Living History group. It's a private group, but check it out, and would love to connect with you and stuff, and would love to be able to spread the knowledge with you as well, as far as uh, living history and stuff, or just history in general. But as far as the old helmet, yeah, I mean, brown besses or good muskets and stuff. To each its own. Um, but um, as far as trade guns, I can't speak on those. I'm, I'm. It's one of those things for me. Um, yeah, the Chickamauga battlefield. That's cool. You make sure that you keep Civil War, Rev War, 1812, whatever war it is. You keep hounding that, and you keep checking it out. Get involved. Get involved in the hobby if you can, or just go to museums. Go to museums, historic sites, whatever you can do, um, and you do it. Um, it's a hobby. Reenacting, or just going. Reenacting is a hobby that is inclusive for everyone. And now I admit there's Renaissance festivals, and if that's all that you're willing to do, go for it. If you're not, it's. I'll just leave it at that. Um, People who know me will know me and know what I mean by that. So it's kind of one of those things. But anywho, for those that are still here, um, the Chickamauga battlefield has a museum with hundreds of guns, lots of original flintlock muskets, rifles, early breech loaders, etc. Well, that's cool. Well, that's great stuff to be able to see and check out, and you just enjoy it. I mean, uh, share what's there. But anywho, I'm gonna log off here. I'm gonna be loading some more videos this week, so by all means, check on in. I'm currently in Florida right now, doing some, hanging out with my family and stuff. Um, all that stuff. But anywho, and thank you very much, the old helmet. It's great to have great people part of the channel, like-minded people as well. Um, and share it with everyone. Share the channel with everyone. For those that are willing and able, just definitely share it. As many times as you can. Anywho, thank you all again, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day and happy Thanksgiving. Um, anywho, good luck and talk to you soon.